Welcome, my friends, to another glorious Wednesday night chat. We are here to vibrant. I appreciate everybody who's shown up already in the chat. You guys are awesome. Andrea, Lily, Ishan, Stacy, Jenny, love you guys. If I didn't say your name, I still love you. And thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends, with your Telegram groups, or your mom and dad, or whoever you think might like it. We're going to have a great time tonight. We're talking to Liz and Tara from the Source Connection podcast. I had the pleasure of meeting Liz at the Music and Sky Festival, and it was a very special encounter indeed. We knew that we would probably hit it off again sometime down the line, and actually we already have. I was on their podcast, The Source Connection. It is not yet released, but it ought to be one of the first things you see on their YouTube channel early in the year. So hold on a second. My monitor just shut itself off, so I'm pretty sure I'm still here. Okay. I'll let somebody else take over while I sort out what's going on with this. Be right back.
Well, we might as well get started. Since we got time, we'll just drop into a meditation like you guys do. I really dig that you start your show with a guided meditation. And so Chance thought it'd be cool if we do that. You mind if I get started, dude?
Yeah, dude, go for it. Yeah. I don't know why my monitor just went out, but I'll just use the other one. I unplugged it.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
so I'll just do how I my experience of how I've been doing meditation for quite a while, but this is kind of my regular kind of drop in. And it always starts with the breath. And you take in one big, long breath in your nose. And you just sit with that breath. Let it roll out. Take a long, slow breath in. Let that roll around and open up the diaphragm. Let your diaphragm go down and you get that Buddha belly. So you're filling up your whole lungs. You just relax, and that's how a baby breathes. You just relax that and open up your lungs from your belly and just breathe normally, naturally, as your body wants to. And just as any thoughts or anything that pops into mind, just let it go. It's okay. Acknowledge it and just be open to whatever happens, to be open to the energies that are coming in. And as we're all doing this together right now, live, or even if you're doing this in the future, we are all connecting right now. Just let's appreciate that. It's a pretty cool thing that doesn't happen very often in the world. So I'm just going to give gratitude for our connections tonight and just to be open to a great conversation. I mean, open to the flow, which that was the original thought of these vibrants, of just being open to whatever happens and let the energies come. And then just breathe and just relax and sit in it. And this is why I'm the spider that probably makes people uncomfortable, because I like to sit in the silence. Just be comfortable with the silence, so we can learn from nature and be on its vibration And if you haven't grounded today, I would highly encourage you to. And then just breathe. Long and slow from your belly. As we're all in this open state of mind, of gratitude, of this connection. So thank you, Chance, for bringing this in and helping us do this and put this together, man. This is going to be cool. I appreciate it.
Buddy, that was wonderful. You're such a magical shaman guy. So thank you for that. It felt really good. And how are you guys doing, Liz and Tara? I'd love to know, how's that taste of your own medicine? Because that's how you guys like to kick up your show.
Yeah, that was really like delicious to sit and receive and just to fully receive that. And Gordy, the vibration of your voice just like really calmed my nervous system. So thank you for that.
You should hear him do his throat singing.
Ooh, let's do it.
Stay tuned.
I might have to warm up for that, but we could see how it goes.
It's so lovely to also just, as Gordy was saying, just sit in this together and just feel the ramifications, like the nonverbal communication that's happening at all times. And if we just sit quietly enough, we can really just comprehend a little bit of it. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me do that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That felt good.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit in the silence, till someone else breaks it.
Yeah.
To do that. And
we've definitely done that. Yeah.
It feels so good. And it's just like, yeah.
Well, it's so full. The silence is so full, right? So it just like fills you up.
Yeah. Well,
but I do think people want to know about you guys and your show.
Okay.
So first of all, maybe tell us how we met, Liz.
Yeah. So Music in Sky this year, whenever that was, a couple months ago, maybe a few months ago. I got there on the weekend, and so I had missed the first couple of days, and I get there, I get settled, and there's this fireside chat happening with this guy named Chance that I never heard of. And I'm just like, who is this brother? Who is this being? It was just like an immediate like recognition, the way you were speaking, the conversations that were being had. And it was Alec, Kelly, and Eileen, and you. And I went to bed early, and I was like, had the intention, right? If this is an encounter that's meant to happen, it'll happen. And so the next morning when I get ready to explore, I see some people doing Qigong. And I slowly make my way into, because I don't know what's happening, if it was something private. And, I'm slowly just, hey, how are you? Yeah, breathing. And it was you leading. And we got to talk after. And yeah, and that was the beginning of this, whatever you want to call it.
A beautiful friendship. Absolutely cool. And Tara, we had the opportunity to meet just once so far, and
the
podcast that we did together, which I'm very excited to share when that comes out.
Yep.
But I was looking at your bio page on your website, which I should share. I'm going to post a link to the website in the chat. And I was really excited to find out about your background in Chinese herbalism and acupuncture and healing modalities. So, can you talk to us about your path up to, this present moment?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll give you the cliff notes though, because otherwise I'll be here all night. Gosh. Yeah. Well, Liz and I'm going to go backwards. Liz and I met, which is how the Source Connection was born, our podcast. We met in LA in, help me out, sister, 2020, October of 2020.
It was, the Thank You Body. That was,
Yes, the Thank You Body group that Kelly and Sayre were doing at the time, all over the country. They were doing these Thank You Body like events, right? For everybody to get together and just feel gratitude for our abilities, right? For the body, the miracle of the body. And so Liz and I came together. We both were wanting to organize. So we both had reached out to the Thank You Body folks, and they were like, oh, well, you guys both want to put on an event in LA and nobody else is doing it. And so that's how we met. And that's how the Source Connection was born. But okay, well, I will go back a little bit to the beginning because I don't know how else to do it. But yeah, I practiced acupuncture for almost 15 years. And it was a really good run and I loved it. And I did it until the moment where I wasn't meant to be doing it anymore and was meant to move in another direction. But the reason why I sought that out, or that it came to me in my life, right? Me and Chinese medicine met, was because I had experienced a lot of disease in my body from childhood, basically. And, went the whole Western medicine route as a child because my parents didn't know better. They didn't know any different, right? And then finally, when I was, I think, 21, I got acupuncture for the first time, and it was like a miracle for me. It really, it released. I remember walking home from my session and I'm just bawling. I was bawling on the table. I'm like, what is happening? I wasn't sad. It was just all this releasing, right? Because the acupuncturist, he spent time with me. He heard me. He reflected back to me. And I was like, this has never happened before with any other doctor or practitioner. And it was really touching. So I'm sure that was part of it, that connection or bond that we had made. And then it allowed for me to have this release, right? So, which is what happened for the next several days. I just was crying and crying and crying. And it helped me. And so then years later, I'm like, you know what? I don't know what the hell to do with my life. So I'm going to check this out. So I went to an open house when I lived in Austin, Texas, to explore Chinese medicine, and it resonated right away. Anyway, I went to acupuncture school, did all of that. And so spent all those years doing, natural health, herbs, Chinese medicine, all kinds of other stuff, supplement, all kinds of diet, nutrition, all of that. And then, of course, just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper and uncovering layers of what is this really? What is the body really? What's really happening in the body? And just as we know, the body's giving us messages, right? And so I began to listen deeper to my patients, to source, all of that. And so, so then I just kind of shifted, a little bit my practice, and I don't do that anymore. I do it for family and friends. And I think acupuncture is wonderful, just like all, methods and all of that. It's a wonderful permission slip, like Liz and I talk about on our show all the time. But I do sincerely, since I believe with all of my being that we don't need any of it. And we are, we can heal ourselves. And so that dropped in really, really strongly. And I just was like, it's not my path anymore to do this for people, because there's something else that's calling me forth. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of it, but I know that we are grander than all of it, right? We are not that. So yeah,
I like that perspective. The tools, the modalities, they have a definite place. Sometimes I would say a lot, a good chunk of what I do with clients is, a lot of it is to help them believe that something really effective is happening. Not that it isn't effective, but just to say that I could do the entire process of the energetic balancing with my hands and my voice with no tools. Right.
Yeah.
But, the forks are also a great tool, a great external instrument. They're fun. There's a feeling about that. But what you're saying, we can do it all ourselves. I'm sure Gordy is probably would love to weigh in on that.
Yeah, man. I couldn't agree more. I still use acupuncture, but I lost, over the last 4 years, I lost 95 pounds. And before that, I was having seizures and all sorts of neurological problems and stuff like this. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor and they were watching it for 4 years and stuff. But that healing myself with my diet and eating clean and just paying attention to exactly what you put in your body and meditating and working your body too, you're being back into it. like being present in your body is like the biggest thing you could possibly
Yes.
preach to anybody. Like if you could get that one thing, like a lot of that other stuff, like just kind of comes with it. You know, you take that one step, like it's one of those uh, wonderful snowballs where you just keep wanting to be healthier. But God, I wish I'd have found, you know, these kind of modalities earlier in my life, but thank God I did, because you know, I was fucking miserable.
Mm. When you look back at that time, Gordy, do you see your own disconnection with yourself and then the process of just coming back and that was somehow needed?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
acupuncture helped me through a lot of the opiate jonesing, by the way. Uh,
Yes, it's super effective for for addictions. I did a lot of that with folks.
yeah,
Yeah.
it helps a lot. I do suggest it to a lot of people
Oh,
still.
absolutely.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think you're right. You know, we can heal ourselves.
Well, and the thing is that but a person has to believe that they have that power, and so all of these tools and methods are to help this person believe in themselves more,
Hmm.
right? That's like it's just
Yeah,
pointing you back to yourself like,
yeah,
"Hey, it's all in you. It's all in you. It's all in
Not
you."
just to believe in themselves, but to become aware of their beliefs about themselves.
Yes.
Because a lot of those beliefs,
Yes.
they are like hidden options that you don't even know there's a menu to go change it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Holding the space for people to remember that they are actually capable of that. I feel a lot of the work is that. It's just holding the space and seeing them in that position so they can then recognize themselves in that space, right? And um for sure, having the ability to have experienced that and then give that to somebody else, and then when they get it, and what Chance was saying, like, even recognizing that you get to choose in certain instances where you're not even aware that there is a pattern or something that keeps, spinning you, and you get to control that too. Yeah.
So, Liz, can we learn a little bit more about you and where life brought you to this point?
Yeah. So from a very early age, I think I recognized myself as feeling uncomfortable being here. There was something about this place that was foreign to me, and there were different ways of doing things, even though most people around me seemed to not recognize that. So I've always kind of marched to the beating of my own drums and started with my teenage years being a musician. I was a rock and roller. I think I heard, did we talk about that? We talked about that on our podcast because we talked about making music and recognizing ourselves. And I even had a moment of healing. So for you folks out there, when you hear back our conversation with Chance on our podcast, there was something really profound and beautiful that he said that instigated like an immediate recognition, right? This is what we're talking about right now. And so very counterculture driven and just knowing that there was a better way to do things. Raised by a mother who also was her own medicine woman in a way, but still raised very conventionally, like went to school, did the things that people do, graduated in journalism and did not want to do that. Um, I just felt like I needed to have a diploma.
I went to journalism school, but I got kicked out. I'm kind of glad. Who
Yeah, no,
knows what would have happened if I kept on that path? Now I'm like, I'm still this is still kind of journalism in a way.
exactly.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
Um, and continued on that path of just exploration of myself and recognized, I guess, in my mid 20s or early-ish 20s, that the way I was talking to myself, the way that I was relating with myself, it was not coherent anymore with how I wanted to experience life. And I think that was my biggest shift. It was when I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I want to be my best friend. This is it. This is it. This is us right now. And that started to shift a lot of the behavioral patterns, a lot of the inner dialogues, just that decision. So then I was, had grown up with some sort of yoga. I used to go with my mom when I was young, but that didn't stick. But then that kind of started sipping more. Continue to do music and started exploring the energetic healing arts intuitively my whole life. I would put hands on people and people would say, I feel better, or I would do things. And then was introduced to Reiki and said, oh, maybe that's what I'm doing intuitively without the cognitive awareness. And so pursued that and then pursued
I
pranic.
had the same experience myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same.
Oh, there it is. See? Oh, and here we are.
I would go to music festivals and friends who were like maybe a little too intoxicated, or they're like feeling like they're going to throw up, or they get a bad headache, or just, they're having a bad trip or something. I was the guy they'd come to, and I would just like all I did. This is the secret, guys. Here's the trick. I put my hands like by their temples or on their, like around their head or on their head. I just made eye contact. And didn't look away. And just like in my mind, I just called them back, like, come back. It's okay. Come back. And I didn't say anything, just eye contact. And, sometimes the headache would go away. Sometimes, well, they would always feel better. The headache would go away. The nausea would go away, but sometimes they would like then go purge. Sometimes just I make eye contact with someone for like 5 minutes, I'm broken, and then the next thing they're puking up some black shit, and then they're good. That happened more than once.
Yeah, holding that space, like you're talking about. Well, holding the space for somebody to be exactly where they're at, right, and being there with them, so they can recognize themselves in whatever it is that's going on with them, and then holding the space for something bigger to emerge, knowing that they're not that experience in that moment. So intuitively doing that, and then as I started to study those things, I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing intuitively. And having learned those things, then also taking those things with a grain of salt, because I think it's so much more than that, so much more than what we could write or talk about or put on paper or describe to somebody, because I don't think I can even understand all of it. And having become a mother, that also shifted my whole perspective on everything, and understanding that I wanted a lighter footprint on the planet. Like, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of environments do I want to create with my presence and facilitate for others? So then that led me into like healing circles, leading women's groups, and then studying Kundalini yoga, becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher, really pursuing that, what Gordy was saying, helping people come back into their bodies, not just float out there, but come back and ground and really embody oneself in the physical, and seeing that embodiment, like you were saying, all the pieces falling into place because you're choosing to be with yourself. You're choosing to sit with yourself. You're choosing to go through whatever it is with yourself. And to me, that has changed everything, everything. So that's a little bit. And now I want to play music again. I'm like itching to play music again. I saw this guy. His name is Rant. Have you guys heard of this musician? I'm going to say young kid. I always, when somebody's younger than me, he's this kid. I think he's in Europe somewhere, and he did this song. It was the most sparked I felt musically in a long time. It's him talking. It's all sides of himself talking to each other. Just so cool. And then it's this mixture of like classical guitar with him kind of rapping and having this rant with himself as an artist, as a creative, right? About this is good, this is not so good. Why do you think? Oh my God, here you come, depreciating yourself, whatever it is. The way it's created, it's a spark I haven't felt in a long time. So we'll see what happens with that. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to sing and make music again.
Well, we do always talk about our band, our future band, the Source Connection.
Chance, if you feel called to make music again, that those paths could cross again. All of the common things, about, right? Did this, did that. It could just like, woo.
Yeah, I'm like really into classical guitar music lately. And sometimes I pick up the old acoustic and tool around with it.
Yeah. And then the Source Connection came about because I'm just going to add to a little bit how we decided to go with it, because we were having conversations, the two of us, that Thank You Body rally kind of encounter became a group in LA in the midst of the COVID experience. And we were having these conversations, the two of us, and I said, I was in deep meditation one day, and I just said, this needs to be something, because most people are talking about the dying world. Most people are, fixated with what's happening and just the disillusion of something. And what was exciting for the both of us was to tell new stories, was to talk about what's possible. What are we going to do? And we wanted to amplify that. And I said, at first I thought, we're going to do an Instagram live, I don't know, once a month. And then it was like, no, this is a podcast. And so we just,
And I said, and it's a video podcast. And then it just it's all been so effortless. And Liz and I talk about this from time to time, how effortless our collaboration has been. And I've worked with a lot of people and collaborated, in my life and my professional life and on projects and things. And it's never been this aligned, this much ease. We just led a beautiful group of beings through an online experience together, and we'd get together to plan these sessions, and it's just flowing out of us. And and then we'll do this, and then we're so on the same page. And of course we have our own gifts and we bring different things to the table, but I'm so grateful every single day that that we're not just sisters, but we get to really express something that wants to be expressed in the world together.
And the world needs those spaces like these where we can just talk about this stuff and not be afraid to go down those roads, because we're going to offend somebody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's going to happen. We don't care. We're beyond that.
Yeah, totally.
Worrying about what trivial things. It's be open.
Yes.
Because the world is magic and you're missing it if you're not playing with it.
Exactly. Yes.
It is.
Precisely. And the pendulum is always going to be swinging, right? But how do you decide to maneuver through that? It's our choice at every moment. And being open, I feel, makes us more flexible and less rigid. So there's more fluidity in that experiencing of the magic. Yeah.
Ever since I've kind of come to that realization, everything looked different, holy shit, the world is actually magic. It's reacting with us, actual nature is really reacting. We're changing things. So at that point, it's really hard to ignore. How many fucking hours does it take to get Gordy's attention? A lot. So if you guys, I'm just going to plug myself. Go to that's my Instagram.
You need to just have Gordy on your channel and let him tell you all about the owl stuff.
Yes. Can we know why?
Of Gordy and some owls, and he's basically he's an honorary member of Parliament, of the Owl Parliament now.
I love it.
Most funkadelic, baby.
Tell us a little bit. Give us a cliff note.
The short cliff notes. Getting out of rehab, I started meditating under a tree, and under that tree there was a family of owls, and so it scared the crap out of me. But what a better way to learn how to dig into your meditation with some owls staring into your soul. So that was a little intimidating, but as you could feel it with them, as you relax, they relax. And this works with all nature. It's not just owls or whatever, but I'd been meditating for a couple of years with them, and I got to see 3 generations of babies, and I got thousands of hours of owl game cam videos, but there's a bunch on my Instagram. They follow me when I'm walking out in day or night, which is I've got both. So on my Telegram. So if you're not in Telegram, you're missing some of it. you're missing a lot.
Okay.
And
Sold.
I put Gordy's Mystic Studies Telegram in the video description. So
Thanks, dude.
you know,
Appreciate
people
that.
can go join you there. You do awesome weekly, at least weekly group chats and conversations where people can, you know, dig in. And you also cover some cool books that you got everyone reading, and there's a lot going on there.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks, man. So my father-in-law gave me. We can do this other time. My father-in-law left me a bunch of books, and I kind of going through them. They're a bunch of like mystic books, and like it was essentially a Rosicrucian library.
Wow.
And so I've been kind of sharing them in my group, and on Monday nights we talk about it. And
No, yeah. Gordy, you
Sweet.
promote and talk about any of your stuff. Like I brought you in on this one, not just because Gabe is on dad duty and I wanted another bro in the house, but I just knew you and Liz and Tara would super hit it off. So like I'm here to watch you guys hit it off. So just let it happen, do whatever.
I'm like, tell me
they're
about these
they're host
books.
their own show. So if they're asking you questions, you're asking them questions. It's all good. Just
Right?
like, let's go.
He's just
Mystic
holding
Bible.
space for us to remember together.
Yeah.
The Mystic Bible. This is the one that started me off. So I was going through all these books, and like some of them are worth money to somebody, but nobody in our family ever cared. This is why I got it, and thank God, you know, I got all these things, and nobody else would have cared. But whoo, this stuff's fun.
What's been the most exciting one you've like read so far? Or
We've really only gone through the Mystic Bible, and now I'm blinking it. It's already gone. It's right here. What is it? Oh, the initiation into hermetics.
Oh, that sounds great.
And which is once you start to see this writing style, there's this weird thing that Freemason books, like I've noticed, that are like referring back to each other, like it's like part of the sales pitch of getting you to buy another book with their Rosicrucian book club, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm finding out weird stuff, but I mean, everything finding out, like, I am seeing threads of things like cymatics throughout all these symbologies and stuff. Like this is from a Hawaiian shamans group or thing, but like these are the expressions of gods, right? Like,
Whoa. So okay, Gordy, Martin on Rockfin just commented, he was like, can we have some bibliomancy? And then you just opened a random page. So can you just like read a little bit from a random page of a random book?
Yeah, sure. Let's do
it. Yeah, why not?
Let's see.
It's gonna happen. Oh, this thing's a little stuck. Let's do it. Let's do the Mystic Bible. In the human body, which is a microfilm of the cosmos, the diaphragm is the firmament which divides the fiery and airy regions above from the earthly, watery regions below. Again, the composite is male and female. The above or fiery and airy regions being masculine, while below or watery and earthly regions represent the feminine half. The diaphragm functions as the neuter stabilizer and activator of the fire of life and pranic breath from above, and the nourishment and reproduction in the lower half of the human body.
It sounds like that guy is not a glober. He's talking about firmament. I like it.
He has this whole healing, like kind of pre-Western Reiki thing called polarity theory. Have you guys heard of this? So this dude, Randolph Stone, is one thing I learned about this guy. he had this, he would divide the body and have in masculine and feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had it divided into a pentagram. And you could go like left and right throughout I don't know how exactly it worked, but you were like manipulating. It got to the point where you were manipulating the energies, right? I'm like, oh, it's Reiki, you know? Okay, I get it. But he was coming back from, he was like an osteopath or something from Austria, came to the States, got really pissed at the Western medicine, went to India, started learning in the mystic schools, and that's what that happened. So, and then he started doing kind of this polarity theory and trying to market the polarity theory back to Canada, which was interesting. But the English market would never publish his books. It had to be published in India and then marketed back to us. So the translation is weird.
Not right.
I can hear Topher listening back to this later going like, I know about polarity theory. I know about this.
Yeah.
But no, that was a great bibliomancy pick, buddy, because like that
Yeah.
the very opening statement, the human body is a microfilm of the cosmos. I'm just like, yep.
Yeah. Hello.
Mhm.
Ding, ding, ding. And I love there's just the masculine, feminine. I mean, there's a lot of traditions and different teachings and energy work that talk about masculine, feminine, but it's coming around again, it seems.
Well, then calling the diaphragm the firmament is brilliant, because the firmament is where we see the real evidence of as above, so below. And so with this very magical aspect of our being, the diaphragm, we can like express the below and the above. I say this all the time, but like any part of your energy system can be expressed through the voice, any part. And it's got like, so it's really important that you have the voice open and clear, because if you don't want a bottleneck there, literally you'll be either a floating head disconnected from your body, or you'll be a brainless zombie disconnected from your mind. And there's like a lot of people there in that state because of this issue with expression.
Yeah. We have so many opportunities to disconnect and to numb out and to repress in our society. So no wonder that there's so many of us not being able to vocalize, and how important it is to fully express that in whatever way you find, right? That's healing to you, or to find that voice. Yeah. Yeah. We were actually having a conversation today. I'm in the woods with a couple of sisters for a little time away, and we were talking about exactly that and how repressed we've been, and we went into the sexuality of that and how hard it is for people to emote sometimes during that, because we've been so compressed,
What do you mean? Can you talk more about that, Liz?
Yeah, we were just
elaborate
about the difficulty that we have sometimes, and I say we as a collective, not me specifically or somebody who I was talking to or us here, but anybody, right? To fully emote and to fully let this speak, either through words, moaning, screams, humming, any of that. And as Chance was saying, recognizing this as a tool in and on itself, right? That you could use your own voice as a tool for energy manipulation or coherence,
for healing.
Yeah, for healing.
For healing yourself, because it's your own frequency, your own vibration. Like just humming for a few minutes in your own voice can just calm everything down, and yeah.
I find interesting that we get to this, and this was the conversation we were having maybe 2 hours ago. Naturally so.
Yeah.
It's it's on the sky clock docket. The sky docket.
You're like, right. This is.
Now I have a question for both of you. How did you guys meet?
Spiders, right? Spiders.
Yeah, I first met you through Weaving Spiders Welcome, the YouTube channel.
So Weaving Spiders Welcome is a channel, a thing that we do on Saturday nights, and it goes from 8-ish Pacific to whenever in the morning. Like we'll do 6 hours, and then like sometimes later on, we just hang out sometimes afterwards.
Yeah, it could be like 4 people or 12 people, or
It's
anything in between.
Yeah, it's a wild time, but it's for that many faces in the room. It's incredibly well managed, and the conversation flows, and it's been an interesting education, I think, for all of us. I think, right, Chance?
Oh yeah, I really love the spiders, and I'm kind of miss you guys.
I miss
Yeah,
you
it's
too,
like too
buddy.
late for me lately to do it. But and also, the solstice time, everybody's been a little busier with this or that. But there's going to be a flow state tonight on the Weaving Spiders channel. Of course, I heard it from the man Jim himself, so I plan to attend at least a little bit and maybe do some reading. So Flow State is a different show that is on that channel where we get together on Wednesday nights and we're all doing art of some kind or another. Most of us are. And so maybe some of the people have their camera on whatever they're building or coloring or drawing or what have you. And then we talk and we take turns reading to each other. So we're like activating that left brain of doing something activity, and then right brain of receiving and getting into the flow state. It's super fun. I really love flow state. I've like some of my favorite art I've ever made has come from flow state sessions for sure.
Oh, sweet.
What kind of art?
Oh, if you guys ever want to drop in, including tonight, you're always invited. Yeah, Telegram is where we kind of coordinate all these things, though. Telegram has been life-changing.
Yeah, it really is. I agree. I like Telegram.
Using the chat rooms. Do you guys use the chat room much function? The video chats with your community?
We're part of it's called CPN, COVID Positive News Network, and sometimes we do have get-ups there. We haven't explored that as much for our community. That's something that Chance was encouraging us to do. And we were talking about it for a little bit last we were together, and I like to do that. I think that.
Wait, what are we talking about? Telegram?
Yeah,
getting on Telegram.
Just get together and.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah,
we haven't done that yet.
I think that the weaving that's happening, we're talking about spiders, because I always talk about the weaving and amplifying the field together. It's so important at this time. So this can just continue to seep out the collective so others can maybe faintly hear themselves, and recognize their own abilities right now.
Right? Isn't that cool? That's why I've loved this experience with these guys, with Chance and Gabe, and all these communities like kind of overlapping. That because we did call it Weave on purpose. When we first started, it was just called Weaving Spiders Welcome, and I knew from the whole conspiracy thing, the plaque on the front of what is it? Bohemian Grove. Yeah, that's what it's referring to. It's the opposite of that.
Oh, okay.
It says Weaving Spiders Come Not Here, and David Barsky said Weaving Spiders Welcome. I'm like, I'm in.
Nice.
I'm like, that's clever. And so we specifically, between Jim talking to Jim and having these great conversations with Chance and all these guys, we've made this web where these things are becoming real. Like people are getting together as couples and getting married.
Wow.
Who's getting married?
I'm not willing it on you. I'm just saying it happens.
Oh, I actually am.
It's happening all over.
You're getting
and that totally came about from meeting on Telegram.
Oh, there you go. See?
Really?
Yeah, really. Pretty exciting.
That's amazing.
Thank
Who needs
you.
dating apps, right?
It's like a huge fast forward button in a good way
I
to like
know.
meet
Right.
through this type of portal because like, okay,
Yes.
so you
Yes.
don't believe in boogeyman. Okay, check. You
Right?
understand that like you're a self-healing infinite source being incarnated as a temporal human. All right, check. Like, all right,
Yeah.
we're creators. Okay, got it. Like so much fast forwarding in a lot of really good ways. So I feel like sharing this.
awesome.
This is from Flow State. I made this exclusively
Ooh.
in Flow State sessions.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
And
That's
you
like
can get this as a puzzle on my merch store if you
I
want.
saw that. It's
let's
actually
plug
I
it.
asked you who did it. I didn't know you had done it. It's fabulous.
Oh, that is just yeah, I don't even have words. So intricate.
So
Beautiful.
cool. Mm.
I mean, you could just for hours, you know, like what's over there? Oh, look at that little thing. Oh.
Yeah, this is how I like to do it. Just
Yeah.
real crazy.
Medium, what
Thanks
did
for
you use
sharing that.
to do it?
Markers,
Mm-hmm.
various
Ah.
types of markers.
Yeah.
Which Enneagram is that? Or not Enneagram, I Ching, sorry. I Ching thingy is that?
Whoa. I feel like there's more than one in here. But
Mm-hmm.
over here, I think it's
Oh, I
49,
see the
which is
spiders.
the well. Hexagram
Yeah.
49.
Ah.
And I put
I see that.
hexagram 7 over here, but I didn't put the hexagram. I just put the elements, which is yin and water or abyss.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
And on the bottom there are those little what are they called? The musical instruments? Is that what that is? On the very bottom with the rainbows coming out or the you know when you were a kid and you had the little instrument with the rainbow?
Harpsichord?
Is that what it's called? I don't remember, but it looks like that to me. Or their shoes. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
There, whatever you see, I'm fine with. I mean, I don't even know everything I put in there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just
Well,
fun.
now I love this conversation about so many fast forwarding in that Telegram thing. Maybe there's something that needs to emerge in that space of like matchmaking. Now my wheels are like,
Yeah. You know, well, selfishly, I guess I'm newishly single. And so I've been thinking, oh man, I'm dating now in this world. Like this, like, what is this gonna be like? You know, like
I find that
because
it
like,
helps to just jettison all the old version of what that means.
yeah,
And
totally.
also like, you know, it helps to not be like looking, but to just be
Right.
flowing,
No.
you know,
I mean, I'm not really. It's just it was just like, yeah, this is a different world, you know, than before. So there's new sort of considerations, you
But
know.
the best way to meet anybody, whether they're friends or romantic partners, is that for them to meet you while you're doing what you absolutely love to do the very most.
Absolutely.
You know,
So
like
you're split up.
not
Mhm.
meeting it necessarily at a bar. So you know, maybe that works out. I'm not
I would
saying that.
never even
I'm not cursing that, but like if you're doing what you really love, that's
yeah,
the way to meet people.
absolutely. Just do your life, of course. Just do
yeah,
your life.
yeah.
However, there is something to be said, you know, Liz was talking about you know, in these times, like gathering people who are, you know, who are on the same page in some way. And yeah, I don't know. Could be interesting.
In coherence,
And yes.
right? With
Yes. All coming with you don't have to worry about the checklist. Like that's done. Okay, we're all here. We know
You're
we
gonna
have
get
a
some
baseline.
emails like, you know, I'll take you on a date.
Well, if you want to come to Johnson City, Tennessee, and I'm not giving any more information, but if you want,
see, who would have thought it would have come to the Vibrant and you would have been going out on
no.
dates after?
Well,
So anything is possible. But
anything's
I like
possible.
that just that thought of like, because we were having this conversation recently because Tara was talking about her exploration with that and just the thinking of like, because I told her, I said, oh my God, if I were single, it would be, I think like Chintz was saying, like it would have just have to happen so naturally, right? Because my first question would be, what do you think about viruses? Like you know,
Yeah.
the first thing that would probably come out of my mouth, and that would just already be,
There you have it. Yeah.
yeah, like what is this all about? And not that somebody needs to be on the exact same page, because to me it's a continuous exploration, but how open is somebody, right, to anything that's out of maybe what they consider to be true. And so we were laughing about all of that recently. So it's good to know, Tara, that
What
Telegram,
is the place to
meeting in the communities, meeting in the
uh-huh.
spaces where, you know,
Yes.
the
Oh, I know. Yes.
checked in that way. So there isn't a struggle with that. There is
Right.
No, really, the audience should know that too.
The
That if,
weeding
I
out.
mean, a lot of the people in the live chat are all in our Telegram group, but if you're somebody hearing this on the RSS feed, the audio later, or just catching the replay, there is a very amazing community waiting for you if you want to jump in. Actually, several communities, and you just join one. And I like the organic way that Telegram works as well. That you're not going to people's profiles, and there's not like
Right.
posturing and status updates and all of that. Is just
Totally.
communication. And then whether or not you find yourself in other groups or following other channels is kind of like, there's no like scrolling in the same way that you get with like Instagram and that mindless hypnotic scrolling thing.
Yeah.
Instead, it is more intentional. Like, I want to check in with these people, and you
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
a very different vibe than social media. I wouldn't even call it social media other than the fact that you are
No.
social there. It's like, maybe it's the actual social media and the mainstream stuff is antisocial.
That's a good point. It's very intentional. I feel the same way too. I remember, because I had it for a while, and then I let it go. And then when this all came about, Telegram was the place to go. And I remember going, and I was just like, there's a different energy here. It feels very different. It feels very open. It feels very inviting. Some of the stuff is just a little cut and dry, but to an advantage, I feel. Like you were saying, there's not a lot of voyeurism in that way, and pretending. And you actually, yeah, you just go and you engage intentionally when you want to.
Yeah.
The thing I like about it is that you have to be there. Like,
Yeah.
it's not recorded. You're just
Right.
and even the nature of the chat itself, it's like you have to kind of be in the moment, because there's stuff in my communities that I miss. I have to go back, but
Oh, yeah.
try as much as I can. But God, it's a lot of stuff sometimes, and which is bitching. I mean, what a good problem to have, like like
Yeah.
good people, like interacting.
Yes.
And there are really neat people that I have
Yes.
met through
Yep.
this community, and like, just fantastic. I can't be more grateful. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love the nature that you have to, if it's a live chat, you have to be there. It's not recorded. You have
Yep.
to sit in the conversation. You're not, it's got not for the future. You have to be there now. And so I think there's something special in that kind of interaction, because we shared that. We literally just am sharing this right now. But in the future, it'll be different. It'll be something else.
Yes.
That presence. Yeah.
That
Mhm.
presence.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's you naturally are, just like in real life, really. The energies draw you and move you. And,
Right.
it's a very intuitive process.
And people, there's something I've noticed too. There's a resourcefulness. People are really in collaboration. People want to help. Everybody, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm in need of this. Have you guys dealt with this?" or whatever the thing is, everybody comes and like shows up, which I find it very exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got one time, me and my dog walked through a patch of, like, I guess you'd call them seed ticks or chiggers.
Triggers.
And so
Ooh,
we were
chiggers.
just like, my legs were just covered in these tiny little bastards, and I'd never
Oh.
dealt with that before. So I Googled it, and I was like, how do I get rid of seed ticks from my dog? And of course, Google was like, just apply copious amounts of poison and just, poison your dog and it'll be great. And I'm like, okay, what else, Google? And it was like, poison, just poison your dog.
Just for poison.
Feed them poison or put poison on them topically, just whatever, just poison. So I couldn't find any other answer than that, of course. And I hit up my Telegram group, my chat, and Michelle, who's in the chat now, suggested to get some witch hazel and bentonite clay and apply that to my skin and to the dog as like a mask. like a mud, make
Yes.
basically like a mud clay bentonite witch hazel thing. And when it dried and I peeled it off, like the little guys just came out with it, and it was awesome. It dealt with the
Nice.
problem. I had to do it twice, but geez, it was really good.
No
Yeah.
poison needed.
Yeah, and
Nope.
no poison needed. It was wonderful. So I
Never.
wouldn't. What I always say is like these groups, they become like what the internet was supposed to be. It is a search engine where you're asking humans for the
Mhm.
answer, and they're
Right.
humans that you already know that they're trustworthy, they're vetted,
Right.
potentially, depending on who answers. But
Right.
it is so much better than the search results on Google that it's not even funny.
And yeah, and there's an investment. I feel people more invested in seeing other people thrive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like succeed. There isn't like, at least I haven't felt a sense of competition or lack or not enoughness.
Yeah.
And that's really refreshing. And I think that taking these spaces back, just organically, like it is happening, it almost mutes everything out there in a sense because it's not interesting anyway. And you have this richness in people, in real people, and people willing to listen to the stories, right? Because a lot of what's happening is people kind of tuning other people out. We used to listen to our neighbors. We used to go like, really? Tell me more. How's that? What do you mean? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is still that, I find, at least.
Oh gosh. And I still
Mm.
work with this, but I'm realizing that a big part of what is disconnected, at least for me in my life, from neighbors, from friends, from family, is the identity of busy.
Yeah.
And go, dude, it's such a horrible state. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not busy anymore. For the record, anybody
Yeah.
out there that was wondering, like, I thought I would tell Chance this or send him that or whatever, but maybe he's too busy. No, I'm not. Hit me up.
We talk about
I'm now living a life where I have the freedom and like mentally is mostly a mental thing. The mental freedom to just like sit there and exist
mm,
with like my
Mm-hmm.
dogs or something and there's nothing going on, not listening to a thing, not watching a thing, just
Yes.
existing and just expanding. And like, that's a real good place to be. And I think it's also helped me to be more willing to communicate and exchange with others freely without necessarily like a purpose behind it. And I'm not saying that we should be
Yep.
purposeless all the time, but like being busy is not a prerequisite to be productive.
yeah,
Busy is a state of mind, and it like programs the universe to not offer things, to not bring opportunities, and in particular to like just be less fun. So that's I think maybe a really good thing to heal in ourselves is the belief of I'm busy, and just delete that identity and start from
Absolutely.
scratch where it's like I have time for everything I need and I do what's best and right and most fun and in flow in that moment, and I trust myself that I will get the things done that need to get done in the proper timing, and that I don't have to organize all that in my mind with some kind of to-do list that I go over and over again and again to just like hope I don't forget that. Like it's going
Yeah.
to you can if you give yourself some trust,
mm,
it's like training a dog, not that we're dogs, but there is this interesting relationship with whatever it is that we are beyond the fourth wall that is
mm,
watching the mind and watching the body and the identity and the personality, where this more innate essence of ourself, if we can just start looking at the other aspects of self that are in the box, in the experience, in the dream, as a child that you are caring for, like as if it was your own child, and training and helping that way, it can be, really just takes away the edge of all victimhood and all forms of disconnect. If it just becomes this more loving, almost parental relationship that you can have with, the essence of who you are and the expression of who you are.
mm.
Yeah. I think trust is such a huge, just like trusting ourselves, trusting timing, trusting life, source, whatever you want to call it. I used to be a huge list person, just checking things off, I haven't done that in a very long time. I mean, I have a calendar, right, to organize the things I need organized. But yeah, and everything gets done. It always does. Everything that needs to be done, because at the right time there is an impulse for it to happen, right? It just does. I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing, and then it's like, oh, and it's at the exact right time. So it's just trusting that fully and surrendering to that. I mean, it's really a practice for sure, but man, does
I'm
it
not
make
saying
life
there's no
so
room
much
for
sweeter.
discipline. Discipline's great.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
discipline is
sure.
like there's routine, but there's flexibility.
Yes,
You know, there's like a
there's a
balancing act
balance
with
for
that for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, my to-do list, like, do the laundry, go get the oil change, like, even these, like, really simple things, right, that need to be done in life. Like, I used to make lists for all of that, and now I'm like, it just happens because it comes up in my mind, you know.
And when people torture themselves with that to-do list and they do it chronically for a lifetime, they end up with like a hip replacement in their right hip.
Mm.
Mm.
That's where it lives in your biofield.
Well, wouldn't that be also connected to like the overdoers?
Yeah,
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. And like people that
Yes,
just
the
do
right hip,
too much.
that right hip, the front of it is the overdoing, and the back of it is the mental aspect
Mm,
of overdoing, which is the to-do list
yeah.
torture type of thing. Doing the work in your mind before you're doing it in reality, which is completely a waste of energy.
I would open the conversation, not the conversation, but continuing this topic of like, wouldn't that be related to like the enslavement that we've all been through to a level and that
Yeah.
we're freeing ourselves from, like the
Yes.
doing, the busyness, the productivity, the goals, like this place that you're always trying to get to instead of just, as you were saying, the beingness of right now, the beingness of this moment. And I feel like there's this thing happening where we're all being called to make that choice. You know, do you stay in that slavery in your mind, in your body, in your doingness, or however you want to say it? Or would you like to come into a different state of being?
It's like the proper order of things is what is necessary. So the simplest way to put it is the idea of time, which is what is governing whether or not we feel too busy or not, is related to our perception of time. The belief in many people is that time is this measured, objective thing, but the real time is subjective. The real time is your spiritual development, your development as a being, your growth as the entity that you are. And then the secondary thing is the measured time. And we only have one word, which is time, but the
Mm.
Greeks had two words for this. They had chronos, which is the measured time, and they had kurios, which is subjective time. So if we're putting our subjective experience behind this objectification of time, then, which I don't even think is real, like in the sense that I don't even think, like, I personally am at the point where I don't even believe that a year is the same amount of time every go round.
I have the
You
same.
know,
Mhm.
like as much as I've researched the astronomer priests and the history of religion and mythology, the one thing that they are consistently doing is being wrong about the cycles of time, like completely wrong over and over again. So like, I think nature wiggles. I think nature is subjective. I think that it doesn't necessarily, it does things in a pattern, in a rhythm, but it's not always exactly the same. So we can use that objective time on the clock as a tool, or it can be our God. And we think that it's like actually a real thing that exists. And then you've made fiction your reality and you're living in fiction. The reality is your subjective experience, and not the fiction of numbers and hands on a clock. So if we can flip that around and use it as a tool rather than be its tool, then we'll be in the flow that we want to be in.
Yes. And I'll go back to that healing moment I had when we were together last, to where we broke this concept of time, to where the healing of my 16-year-old self came about now, right? So how do you explain that?
Mhm. Yeah. It's
So,
all
and
right.
I'm pretty sure that with
Yeah,
your
I'd love to hear elaboration on that because it's a powerful technique to go back to previous versions of self. I use it with clients all the time.
yeah, I do it too. And the way that is coming up for me lately with clients is, again, right? You make yourself available into this continuum, this mystery that we could call many different names. And then the things that are ready to be dealt with, or the things that emerge, it's what's right there for you. What I've been doing very playfully right now is visualizing and going back, because I'm very visual. So visions will come of like, oh, I see this, or I sense this about a situation, a thing. How old were you? This age. I feel a sense of this. Yes, I wasn't allowed. I had one recently with a client where, without going into too much detail, the part of the childhood was spent in a room. There wasn't a lot of being able to go outside for different reasons. And we were able to go back into that time and space and shift that creation, right? With new awareness, and recreate that moment, recreate that experience. And the results of that, and then coming back, and then 1 week, 2 weeks, what we call weeks, coming right after that, the sense of freedom, the sense of relief, the things that were happening in the body are not there anymore, right? The constriction or the tension or whatever thing. So I think it's going to be different for everybody. The one I spoke about specifically that happened when we were together, you were talking about when you was able to listen to one of your songs and you thought of yourself in a different light, and you thought, wow, I would hang out with this guy, right? Which was a total different experience than you had in that moment, creating that, but having that perspective of this thing we call time, this dilation, this space. And you talk, the way you spoke about it helped heal that same wound for me, right? So it was not even an idea of let's go into this space, let's recreate this moment in time. It was literally the juxtaposition right there of that gift of healing for myself, of like, yeah, I felt it in my being, like my eyes welled up, and you guys will see this on the podcast. And I was just like, wow, yes, just an instant transmission. So that's why I'm saying, like, we can have all these ways of describing things or techniques or things, but there's something so much greater that there's no words, right? I don't even care to have words for it.
Yeah.
Just oof, okay, wow.
It doesn't even need a name, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and I
What
understand.
was that, Gordy?
recognize it. Like it doesn't need a name. Once you name something, it puts limits on it. And you don't really want to do that with a magical energy or whatever it is that's this healing force. Because as soon as you name that force, it says it's not that. So
Right.
like being open
Mm-hmm.
like to that, whatever that is in whatever form that comes in. Like
You're so right, because like every time in the past the priest would name the god, they would name the healing force, they would name the mediating principle between us and the supreme being of all existence. Inevitably, the people would fall into idolatry over the
Yeah.
Yes,
name,
yes, yes. And I think that sometimes words are small. Sometimes the experience is so grand, and when we try to put
Mm-hmm.
it into a thing, we do it a disservice because we're like, oh my God, it's like, how do you describe, and I'll go to the simplest thing, how do you describe the smell of a flower? You know? And why do we try to do that? And so from that simplest act to like a moment like we had, and I've had other moments of very similar things, I think it's making ourselves available to this mystery in a way that it is us, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
outside of us. It is
Mhm.
us. When I hear Gordy talk about nature and this coherence, it is us. It is me. It is you. And when we start to recognize that, we go and when you talk about the owls, right? What is this owl aspect of you? What is that symbology? And it's just us at every moment. And we're just seeing this external expressions of us in different forms, different shape, different sizes, different qualities or whatever, but it's so much greater than this, and the connectivity that we all share, and just having that direct experience really does help one understand that there's something so much greater, and just resting in that I don't know sometimes is enough. Just
Mhm.
oh, you
And
You
know.
know, I
speaking of
feel blessed to be given the name that I have because it like represents an absence of concept, like a potential instead. And also, it's one letter different from change. So
Right.
Mm.
I'm not saying that I'm any more comfortable with change when it's hard than any other human being, but like I do have this innate knowing that like, well, change is definitely coming. It's going to happen. So just go with it.
Yeah. And
Totally.
with this conversation of time, I think about spontaneity and how that is also who we are. That is also like Liz speaking about this experience she had. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like we're going to have a session and we're going to do this, even though that's also beautiful too. And that's one container for it. You know, I've worked with clients for a lot of years on what, speaking of naming things, calling inner child work, you know, which is beautiful. And it's one sort of form of what we're talking about here, I suppose. Um, and then I kind of went through this phase of like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm gonna, you know, I'm drawn to something else. And so then it was about like just surrendering into the great mystery or source or whatever it is. And, you know, and then I'm like, okay, well, that's maybe a little bypassy. So it was kind of finding my way, right? And working with clients. And there's always a balance. But I had this beautiful experience that I'll share just a few weeks ago. And of course, you know, but as we all have visited all the things in our life, you know, when they come up and cause us pain or wounds, you know, in the moment, and or I spent a lot of my 20s in therapy and all of that. Um, but I had this moment where something came up and there was a opportunity for me. I was like, wow, this thing is coming up from my childhood that I really felt like I'm visiting this again. You know, we have those moments where, oh, again, this is coming up, but just having such an immense compassion, like a compassion for myself that I didn't have when it came up 10 years ago or whatever. You know, so there's always an extra layer, like if it's showing up in your life. And that's the beautiful thing to me, is that we don't have to go looking for our inner work. We don't have to go searching for, oh, now I need to work on this. And now I need to work on this. Our life shows us right in front of us what the next thing is and what the next thing is. So our life is, you know, somebody says this, I don't want to plagiarize, but that our life is our medicine, you know, that we are the medicine, that it's right here. Everything that we need to expand and grow, whatever, it's right here. And it's a miracle.
Mm.
What I to add to that, I would just say the nature of truth is that it is what exists. Like if it
Yeah.
exists, it's truth. So you know, in nature, not conceptually.
Yeah.
So
I was just
whatever we experience in our life, whatever we experience in any moment of our life, the full and total truth is always right there and present, and it's a limitation of awareness and paying attention that separates
Yeah.
us from the immediate and full presence of truth about all aspects and layers of our being, and
Yeah.
especially including whatever medicine we might need in terms of balancing and the emotional level, you know, healing aspects. Like there will always be a big clue about what needs to be healed right in front of your nose at all times. And it's like once you kind of realize, oh, I'm in a continual conversation about how to bring myself into balance, and not only is my inner world part of this conversation, but my outer world is part of that conversation. And I can check it and see the interplay between the two to see where the conversation is going and where to put my attention, because attention is what puts the energy towards healing whatever needs healing.
yes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
and to under
Knowing that.
and to understand that the way we've been kind of I want to find the right word. guided to believe, when you talk about the healing and the thing is right there in front of your nose and the crisis and everything that happens with that. And just trusting, right? Trusting at every moment. This is exactly what needs to happen. This is exactly the unfolding of what is coming up and coming through and needing to be revealed, released, addressed, and not shine away from that, especially when it reaches symptomology in the bodies and just everything, and just trusting, continue to trust, continue to trust. That's one news story I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
It's how we've been, just confused about what it is that our bodies are doing at every moment.
For us, for us, for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when we listen, like it tells us,
Yeah.
you'll when you're actually living in it, you'll start to crave those things that'll heal your body too.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Oh, and that too brings up like food, which is such a huge, like of course we can use food as medicine, right? We all know that. And once, maybe many of you here can relate to this, but I've been through, especially having so much sickness and illness, disease in my young years. Tried all the things, all the diets, really just everything, and it didn't really work at the time. It's like, okay, there's other stuff going on here. Um, but now I'm so grateful to have the ability to just listen to my body and what it wants on a daily basis and follow that, and not think about, oh, I'm no not eating this right now, or I am eating this, or it's just there's no absolutism, nothing. It's just like totally open and curious, and like, what is coming up? What does my body want?
Mm,
It's just a huge gift.
mm. Somebody mentioned in the chat, the only way out is through. I wholeheartedly live by that. It took me a long time. I avoided it for a while. I think, Gordy, you talked about addiction and, we talked about different things, and just really being able to like sit with oneself and just be there for yourself, whatever it is that's happening, the discomfort, the pain, the sadness, the grief, the joy, right? All of that. Like the ability to do that brings such a richness and a depth to our lives that it's just indescribable. Again, I could use words to say, oh, yeah, this, and that. But, and as you were saying, you start craving everything because of the depth of it. It's not the polarity of it, or one is better than the other, right? Because then we talk
Mhm.
about higher things and this kind of hierarchical thing, when in reality, if you're looking at different things, when your brain is the calmest, right? It's the lower waves. So what is this idea that we've created around things, that we're always reaching for something higher?
Yeah.
And it's like, how low can you go?
Yeah. The bottom is the top.
Exactly.
Interesting way.
Yes.
Yes,
You
it's
Yes.
know, the thing too about what you're describing, it goes back to the time idea, that if we can get, not if we're no longer anchored by the past, thinking over and over about what it was that happened, or if we're not living, most of us are more, it's a left brain culture. So we're more future oriented than past oriented. And a lot of the time, there's like snippets of waking up from sort of the sleepwalking, but there's this real sort of cultural, societal, current human condition. It's not the human condition, but the current conditions of humanity, where it's like we're so we're like 2 to 5 minutes ahead, or an hour or two ahead of where we're actually at. Like, we're doing this thing, but in here we're like, okay, next is that, and next is that. And I get it. I mean, I'm an Aries sun, so Aries is kind of that way, jumping to the next thing all the time. But there is such a psychedelic effect of, like, if you really honestly be where you're at in this exact moment, and honestly observe from that, like, past the fourth wall position of like, I exist, this is all real. It's super
Mhm.
trippy, dude. Like, it's super trippy, and it never gets less potent. You know what I mean, Gordy?
Doesn't
Gordy's
that have so much more power than a simulation?
Yes.
yeah.
You're fucking real, man. Like, stop minimizing what your own
Yes.
experience is by saying
Please.
somebody else's dream or it's just a simulation. When you're in your body, no wonder you think it's all fake. You're not even
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
That's
know, because I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to ask both of you and all of you, Tara maybe can chime in too. I love how I'm interviewing you all. What practices or what things do you use to bring forth that awareness, right? Of just being in every moment, of just being right here, of just being in the now. How has that journey been for you? And do you have any tools in your toolbox that folks can go, oh yeah, I could do some of that.
You know, there's almost a paradox in that question, not to poo-poo the question at all, but that the idea that there's like a tool or a practice to get you where you already are and always were and will always be.
Right.
You're saying that,
You know, it's almost like, for me, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm definitely not discounting practices and tools and things to like really get yourself into the zone and into the moment. Definitely not discounting. And I'm sure you guys have answers for that, but it's almost like this divine grace experience of like getting struck by the thunderbolt of spiritual awareness or knowingness of like, this is existence and I'm in it. I am it. I am existence. And so, you know, it helps, I think about this with emotions, right? How many anytime that you've ever cried or laughed, any of those polarities, wasn't there usually like a thought? And you're like, I'll never do this again. I'll never see such and such again. Whoa. Right. So you can sort of in the same way feel yourself back into the awe of this moment with thought as well. Thought can bring you in. Like when you're in it, it's like there's a flash of like, I'm not thinking at all. But that's why practices of gratitude, appreciation, and recognition of the moment can help with the awe of the moment. Like blessing up your food and like really getting into the feeling of appreciating it will help you be in the moment when you're eating the food and be like, can you believe we get to eat this stuff? Like today I can have tacos and tomorrow I can have whatever, but like we can have all the options. This is incredible.
Yeah, but the question addresses the paradox because it is paradoxical, like Gordy was saying, like I've been there, right? In that place where you're here, like your physicality is here, but you are an hour away. Like you're thinking about what you're going to do in an hour and you're not really right there. So it is paradoxical in and on itself, you know, the existence of
Well, you
that.
were talking about, being in control of yourself. How do you know when you're always trying to escape? I'm glad you brought up the blessing of your food thing, because that was one of the disciplines that I challenged myself to do when I came back to really like start from scratch, and it was the one thing I was gonna, because was doing an elimination diet of everything. I did like a 3-day fast and like was gonna change everything because I was coming off like 22 meds, so it was like it was rough.
Yeah.
But not all at the same time. Although I probably would have been into psychedelics earlier had I did that. But no, it was blessing my food in the morning, like making an actual ritual. One of the things that the first thing I was going to introduce was coffee back into my diet, as like I'm going to do coffee in the mornings anyway, so I might as well make a ritual of it. If I'm going to do it healthy, I'm going to get, whole bean, and I'm going to put the turmeric and, and butter and the fats for my brains and all that stuff. And I'm going to do it with intention every morning. And you're going to do it anyway. You might as well like focus on the one thing. The one thing you can control is what you put in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
like taking control of that right there, even the thought of that, whatever that is, you're gonna eat. For me, I just am gonna stay away from wheat, sugar, and soy as much as possible because it's just garbage to me. But my body, that's how my body reacts. Other people, it could be different. But
Right.
Yep.
I didn't know that unless I would have found that out by starting from scratch. And as a mental exercise too, you're never going to know what you really know unless you forget everything that you were ever told
Mm.
Yep.
and forget everything you think you know and start over.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because if you and that's like one of the things of being self-possession, you take
Mm-hmm.
control of your vessel. If this is really your temple, you should probably treat it like such. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe do a little looking inside instead of praying out, praying in, and being open to whatever. Because when you get out of your own shit and open that up back there's other dimensions that want to help you.
And I think one of the biggest grapbles of all uh, fake spirituality was the separation of spirit and body in the mind, the
For real.
conceptual separation. Like,
Yes.
I am not a spirit that has a body. I'm a body spirit fusion. They're the same thing. I look at it like when if your spirit is the seed of who you are, the spark of life, the spark of the divine, what happens to the seed when it becomes a tree? Where's the seed? It's the whole tree.
The whole
So
thing.
that's how I look at like my spirit when I'm in a body. It is my body. There isn't separation.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do with and to my body, I'm doing to my spirit. It is my spirit doing it. And you'll be happy about this, Gordy. I lived for a long time with a dairy allergy and avoided dairy for many years, and was successful in getting rid of a lot of all my allergies to like plants and animals so that I previously had. But now I've reached a point where I have such a good relationship with my body that I started to talk to my body about it. Like, hey, I think it's okay if we have some dairy. Like, let's try this. I want you to tell me if dairy is really like just a straight up hell no, then you can give me a reaction, but please don't give me a reaction that is like a month of allergies. Just give me something, give me a clue, like sniffles for the night.
Right.
And I started like small amounts of dairy, putting it in where before I had the relationship with my body that I have now, before when my body was like, my relationship to it was like, oh, it's acting autonomously. It is what it is. Instead of seeing it as an extension of my very being in essence, and not an extension, but it is my being in essence. So now I'm able to like ask my body, please don't do that anymore, or please notify me in a less severe way if you need to notify me. I promise I'm paying attention. You do not have to throw the whole kitchen sink at me to get my attention. And body's like, okay, cool. We'll do it that way. And so now I've had some things that incorporate dairy, and I'm not having the reactions I used to have. And so, you can even heal allergies to things. Because the quality of what it was in the past versus the quality of like the dairy that I've allowed to myself to try now, totally different ballparks. And also my level of like, overall systems balance and ability to process things is totally different than when I was having more severe reactions to stuff. So I just wanted to throw that out there that like, I'm going to start cooking with butter again soon. And I'm going to think of you every time, Gordy.
Ooh, I'm excited for you. I love butter.
Welcome, my friend.
And I love this conversation about embodiment because I think as a lot of the spiritual teachings, and I have a lot of experience with that, where not only does it separate the body from your spirit, but the spirit is higher and better and and the body is this lowly thing, and oh, how dare you, be human. Like, that's just like, oh my God. I mean, I see, like, and it's not explicit in a lot of the teachings, but it's a very subtle thing. And so I spent years in, community where it was like, yeah, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, take care of your needs, but the body was always so secondary to nurturing, just being source or what have you, which is beautiful. And I spent years blissed out, and it was awesome. But my body sure did give me a big old sign to be like, girl, you got to come back in, or else we're going to, and I mean, in a big way. So I think this conversation now in these times around just, but everything, it's all of it, the embodiment of us, and this conversation about food, and the consciousness of the food affects, how we treat that, really, I mean, affects our body. There's just so much. I mean, this is a whole conversation in and of itself, the embodiment. But I just wanted to say that I think that can be, as I've seen, as I've experienced, it can be very, very damaging to put all your eggs in the basket of, like, I'm not human.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it goes back to that separation, that
Yeah.
compartmentalization of, like, these different things, that all these layers that are not integrated. And it's funny you talked about that, Chance, because there was a conversation happening today. Somebody said, well, I don't think that my spirit cares what my body is going through.
Mm.
And I remember reading it and like, wait, what? Wait, what? And I think that reclaiming that continuum and that wholeness, I don't know, for me personally, it takes me much further in my own
Yeah.
resourcefulness, but to each their own.
Well, I mean, just think about the word. What do we call it when your body ceases to function? We say you die, but die is a prefix meaning two. It's in the word divide. So at the point where you're like, I'm not my body, and you get your head in the clouds and you're no longer grounded, and you do this spiritual bypassing and a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff that's very popular with the new age, you're giving your body the signal that you're ready to be done with it. And so you're ready to divide yourself from it. And so you die and you split. And I think there can be a totally different experience of death. Not that I've ever died, at least as this guy, but this is my clever segue into talking about, Liz, I know that you're interested in or practicing as a death doula, and maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
I had actually my first death doula experience helping a squirrel die. That was the most practical thing I've ever done in that way. To me, how that came about was first my father transitioning, and I noticed how, even though we knew that that was the trajectory, how unprepared we was, and how people don't really know what to do when that happens. Everybody defaults to either someone helping them and telling them what they need to do, or just kind of going through the motions of what they think needs to be done, right?
And there's also a lot of energy of like, oh no, this is bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to
die.
You're not supposed to die. You're not supposed to transition.
It's like,
And I hope that when it's my time that everyone's just like, you did great. You did great. You don't have to stay. Great job. We love you. I want just really good vibes at that point, like I would any other day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened, and I was like, wow, we really don't know how to deal with this. And also, my experience with that was that I was in New York. My dad died in Brazil, and he was immediately buried. And I didn't get to be a part of that very initiatory moment in my life. And that, like, crushed me. I carried that wound for a long time. And I thought, there's got to be a different way that we deal with this. It's almost, people are so uncomfortable that they just want to put it away and just get over it, right? We don't talk about death. We don't contemplate death. We don't contemplate our lives in light of grief and death. And so to me, there was a new story to be told about that. And I was raised in a way where we talked about death constantly. My mother would always say, I'm going to die. You're going to die. I may die first. You may die. And I remember not liking those conversations as a child, but really appreciating them later, and how much it was really setting the tone for how we would experience death in our family, with our loved ones, and all of that. And really grounded in an awareness that this is not the end of it all. The mystery is much bigger than this experience. So that was always comforting. And so years went by, and I always had this thing on in me of like, wow, I like to talk about death in a different way, and I like to do this in a different way, and I like to create conversations about around death. I want people to talk about it. I want people to face their own mortality. I want people to tell other people how much they love them before they die, because it's beautiful when we go to these funerals and how many beautiful words are said, how much sentiment is expressed, and then you think, did the person ever heard this while they were alive? Did they know how much they meant to these people? Did they know how they affected their lives in that way? Right? So there's always this contemplation. And in 2020, right before the world went into lockdown, my mom transitioned. And because of the experience I had had with my dad, me and my siblings had talked about, okay, when she passes, if I'm not here, my sister was not living there in Brazil also. So we had kind of agreed that, what do we need to do with the body so we can come together in that moment and have that sort of initiation together, right, of the passing of our mom. And I was fascinated to experience when my mom transitioned. When I got to talk to my brother and my sister, they were both there coincidentally, and my brother was saying that they're coming to get the body. And I said, whoa, 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 why? Why do you have to dispose of the body so quickly? So there's all these ideas that it almost felt like it was radioactive, or the body was just going to explode at any moment, and nobody wants to deal with that mess. So there's so many misinterpretations and discomfort just around that to me, that happening opened up again that conversation inside of myself of like, wow, we really need to have conversations around this. I would like to serve in that way. Also, I felt like in my
Can I
world,
ask you something to back up about removing the body? Do you think that, there's something to that, that the being hangs around their body after, they first die, and that taking the body away right away could have maybe a detrimental effect on the being's ability to process what it's going through?
I think that that's going to be answered by each person, right? And what they believe in. Tara and I were having a conversation one time because we did a Q&A with each other for one of our episodes. And one of the questions was, what do you think happens after you die? And my awareness now tells me that whatever you believe it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So it's probably going to be different for everybody, and what relationship they have with what you want to call the spiritual world or the mystery, it's going to unfold differently. So I think what I noticed at that time was more of a discomfort of the people here having to deal with that process, and an inability or fear of looking at that and being with that, just being in that moment. Because, and I even told my siblings, I said, oh my God, if I were there, I think it would have taken me a little bit more time to integrate it in myself that had happened, right? To be with the physical body and to notice the changes and to notice what had happened that was different from 2 hours ago, and she transitioned peacefully at home, which was a beautiful thing. So she looked radiant. Her, like,
Mm.
it felt like she was free. That the feeling I had when I saw her physical body. And so I was having a hard time comprehending why they needed to just move things along really quickly. There was this urgency of this process that needed to happen. And I think that when that happens, a lot of times it stunts our growth because you don't have the space for the grief process in its own time to mature and to really kick in the depth that it could, because you're just trying to get to the next thing, you know. There are cooling plates that can be used for the body, can spend ample time with the body. So thank you, family fungi. And and so that sparked in me again this like, wow, we really need to redefine this process. What do you want death to be like for you, for your loved one, right? If you can make that choice, what would you like it to be? And have these conversations and have people write about these things. How would you like to live your life? Because to me, the grief of that and the experience of having both my parents transition, it has given me such a deep appreciation for every moment of life and how sacred it is and how precious it is. And there's no guarantees of anything, right? We have this kind of arrogance and thinking I can do it whatever time. I can say this 2 weeks from now, I'm going to see them in a week or whatever. We don't know. And so fast forward to July of that same year, one of my best friends had a call.
That's back to, look, can I just say something else? Like that's back to that idea of subjective and objective time.
Yes.
Because when we have it in our mind, like, oh, I can just deal with it later. That is equivalent to bottling something up.
Yes.
Obviously, you know, you can't do everything all at once in every moment, but the best time to express something is in the moment that it's happening or very close to.
Yes, precisely. And I think that the way I was perceiving that and how people were dealing with it around me at that time, it was a lot of discomfort in facing that and looking at it from a natural perspective of like, wow, look, the cycle of life. And then what happens when the person, and then how does the body react? And then what's going to happen next? There wasn't a curiosity, there was a discomfort in the needing to like sterilize that process, you know, to make it as clean or like as pristine as possible in a way. And fast forward to July, one of my best friends was also in the process of dying. And it's when I got the spark, like this was like, this is the time. And that day we had a call with her. I didn't know it was going to be our last call with her, but I said, I'm going to do this right now. And I enrolled in a death doula training that started exactly a week from that day. And that day she transitioned. So I knew that that was very significant for me to embark on that journey of rewriting the story about death, right? And I believe that maybe at some point in our existence as a species, maybe there wasn't death. Maybe we lived longer. I believe that we could live hundreds of years, right? And so that we collectively agree that there was this process that needed to happen in the decay of the body or whatever thing. And so I'm passionate about having this conversation so we can talk about what is death to me, what is death to you, how do we meet in this common space of, as I grew up listening to, you know, the only thing that we're all going to experience the same is death.
Yeah, what if death at a certain point for us was more like, okay guys, I'm going home, leaving the party, rather
Right,
than
it's a choice.
like than
Right.
being taken kicking and screaming by some grim reaper monster.
And you talked about the body, the body being left, right? And the integration process of a soul, whatever you want to call this thing that's, you know, leaving. And I'm quoting here for the ones listening, the body. I just actually heard a man speak on his near-death experience, and he didn't know for a while that the body he was looking at was his body. So at what level are we so identified here with these vessels, right? But this oversight of us when it loses this form is maybe has a different perspective. I don't know, you know, again, the mystery.
Yeah, I think we're more of the animating force that is animating the body, like
Body.
the seed that becomes a tree. And then
Right.
once that animating force is not in the body, then you have died or separated, divided from the body. But like while you're animating this thing, it's you, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about that hermetic law, you know, all is mind. And I was thinking about that like with life. You know, what if it's just because we're convinced that's all we're
Right.
all the years we're going to get. You know, it's only because we're convinced that something is going to kill you. I mean, something is clearly going to kill you, so you might as well accept it now
Right.
and kind of free yourself up. Because you know, once you,
But it's always like, you know, the something going to kill you is always really a deception about like you're going to do something that is out of balance for long enough that you can't keep doing it anymore.
right, well,
Awesome.
so it's the sickness, you know, that like you're talking about, the again and again, that trauma that sits in the body becomes disease. If you don't address the core and sit in it. But that's only because we're overcoming the stuff that we were already naturally supposed to do anyway. You know, like
Right.
we're not supposed to believe it, or we're not supposed to know that we can't do these things. Like a little kid doesn't know that they
Mhm.
can't do stuff, and then they pull off some amazing things. Like you can't,
Right.
like these little kids that play Chopin, you know, from 2 years old, and
Yeah.
you're like,
Right.
because he didn't know you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of times it's because, you know, with our health and stuff like this, we're told you can't heal your own body.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You can.
Or you're told that you age and things start to malfunction, right?
Yes.
I had
Oh,
a
that's
conversation
yeah.
with a cousin the other day, and he said, "Oh, I just had my 3rd surgery this year." And I said, "What happened?" He was like, "Oh, I'm just getting old, you know." And I was just like, when did we subscribe to this idea that as you age, things are going to malfunction? And then if that's what you believe in, then of course that's what's going to happen, right? But can we tell a different story? I have a different experience. I know other people who have a different experience. So when we start looking at our own belief systems and the things that we've agreed upon and like, oh yeah, this is what happens. Is it really? Like the
Right.
other, my
Right.
friend was saying, oh, you know, it's genetically passed down. And I said, well, I don't know if I believe in that anymore. Big eyes, like, what do you mean? How do I, and going in
Yeah.
you know, peeling the layers of like, why do I believe in that? When did I agree to that statement or to that notion, or is it true? Is it true for me? Is it true for, I don't know.
Yeah, I've had several experiences via hypnosis, and you know, I can make them mean whatever that I want to.
Wanted to talk
But,
about quantum hypnosis
did you?
next.
Yeah, quantum healing
I didn't even
hypnosis.
have to cue you up.
Oh,
Thank
There
you.
you
Well
go,
done.
Chance. Yeah.
I've
So,
done the thing. Cool.
will you what, Gordy?
I've done it. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I did it. Like I received a session, and then I decided to become a practitioner. So I did that for a while, and then had several other experiences via hypnosis. But in all the times that I was transitioning from a form out of form to another form, well, for one, it was never like in a human like form, but that's another story. But it was always a choice, like you were saying, Chance. Every single time, it was like you could live infinitely, really, and it was always a choice. Like, okay, I'm done with this one now. I'm going to go on to a different experience. You know, and so we just have never had that option here on this planet that we know of in our lifetime. That's never been part of the story, right? That we could just go on, and maybe we don't want to, and that's you know, a different subject. But I think coming in, at least in the past several hundred years here, it's automatic. Like, yep, you're born and then you're going to die, and there's so much bombardment with so many things in our environment that have an effect on, you know, on us that weren't here, you know, however long ago on this planet, that it wasn't part of it, but now it is. And so we get to choose, do we want to go back to possible paradise on this planet, and maybe we live forever.
Would you?
I think the purpose of and what life is that it goes on. So I think we live forever. I don't think that
Well,
there's
yeah.
I don't think
In this
there's I
body.
mean, maybe not in one form, like you
Yeah.
said. We go on
Yeah.
to different experiences, but
Yeah.
all I've ever known is existing.
Yeah,
If there's existence, then non-existence doesn't exist. It's in the word.
absolutely. Yeah.
Non-existence doesn't exist. So
Mm,
that's why it's so important to like get um continue the process of looking at who you really are, where you really are at all times, honestly, radical honesty in as
mhm.
much in many elements as you can, because like, you know, that's what the suicide victim does isn't understanding is like, yo, wherever you go, whatever you think you're running away from, you're still going to be there wherever you go from here. Nothing is going to change except now you're not in this body, but you'll still be there. So you got, it's like you that you have to make peace with at the end of the day
Mm.
and be friends with, actually, like be really stoked about
Yes.
yourself. It's totally okay to do.
BFFs.
And normalize that.
Mm.
Normalize like feeling good about who you are, our
Yes.
differences, our seemingly differences, and just all the beauty and the things that we bring. Being from different places and having grown up differently and just all of that. It's such a richness.
So
Such
has
a
anybody got anything they want to bring up, close the thread on as we wind our way towards a wrap up here tonight?
Does anyone have any things that they want to come? What is the chat going? I haven't
Yeah.
chat.
Anybody?
Things pop up here and there. I'm on full
Any
screen here
questions?
or
Well, yeah,
reflect.
there is still like kind of a hanging chat about what's quantum healing hypnosis exactly. I think we would like to know more about that.
Sure. I can do it in a nutshell. So quantum healing hypnosis was basically this woman named Dolores Cannon. She actually passed. I met her once in Hawaii when I lived in Hawaii, but she was just like this, literally like could be anybody's grandma, basically. But back in the 40s, I think her husband was in the military, and so she started. They asked him and her to do hypnosis somehow. I don't remember the story of exactly how that happened, but they wanted them to do hypnosis for people that were in the military for, to help them heal from something. And so,
PTSD.
PTSD. Okay, great. Yep. So they were doing that. And Dolores found that in her sessions, all this other stuff started happening, right? Because it was like, okay, hypnosis, we're going to do step one, we're going to do the induction, and then we're going to suggest some things, and then you're going to come out. But these people started recounting their past lives to her, basically, not to her husband, but to her specifically. And and then she started asking questions like, just like in taking notes, and then she was recording and all of that. So it became this thing called quantum healing hypnosis. It was first called therapy, and now it's called technique. But basically the gist of it is the first part of the session is a person comes in with whatever questions they have about their life. Why did this happen when I was 9? Or what, it's basically you're connecting with who your deeper self, whatever you want to call that, higher self, all of that, which we can do at any time. We don't need to be hypnotized to do that. However, it can be easier for some people, especially in the beginning of their journey. So we talked what we call the subconscious or the higher self and ask these questions that they're asking. And then the second part of the session is bringing them through a past life or many past lives or a future life. I mean, I've heard all kinds of crazy, amazing things. And and the whole point is that there's whatever healing is appropriate for them happens in that session. And so I've had people who, had lupus and then after didn't, things like this, but it was their time they learned what they needed to learn from, say, a past life, whatever we want to call that energy, again, all coming into this timeless moment. So they get what they're supposed to get in that session. Yeah. And you can, of course, look it up. Dolores Cannon has a website, and there's a ton of information.
Yeah.
It's
Why
pretty
the
amazing. I did it 1 4-hour session, and
Yes, it's long.
two lives came up, and like I wasn't even really going for that. Like I was trying to fix current trauma kind of things, and like it took me exactly to the 2 points that I was dealing with, though, like that were really relevant to two different points in my life that are reflecting now.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's how I know you can't like people aren't making it up, or I'm certainly not, because it's so like the weaving that, you know, you always talk about the weaving. It's just like, wow, it came up with this life that speaks exactly to what's going on for you now, and like created this spontaneous healing that, I mean, and these stories are not, some of them are just, you know, normal like potato farmer stories, but many of them are very intricate, and you're just like, what?
Chance, do you have that happen with your energy work sessions?
Every once in a while, there'll be something that I would call past life related, but I don't really get into like an interpretation of like, this is what happened to you in a past life. More like there's times when I find resistant and stuck energy in the biofield that is like right at the edge of when they're born, and it's like way too early for them to have experienced anything in this life to give them that type of aversion to that type of feeling. So I'm just like, okay, the only way I can interpret this is that it's you came in already resistant to this, you know.
Yeah.
And then that helps to put it into those terms like, you know, this is this is something you really need to take a look at, because you probably set up this life to give yourself the experiences to see this particular dynamic. Yeah. And you know, I like to just keep the idea of past lives in the same realm as people's like psychedelic experiences, astral travels, those type of journeys. We're in the subjective realm. We do not need to bring the conversation to the place of like, is this real or historical or any of that? And just be like, look, we are we are drops of infinity in an ocean of infinity, which means whatever method we use, if there is the opening for creativity and imagination to come through, then you know, the essence and core of what we are is creative. It is imaginative. And so if we create if we like build the container for an experience to occur where something amazing that is the exact right story that you needed to understand your own story, then that allegory is great. Just the same way that an awesome book or a movie that is fiction can give you that allegory that gives you spiritual growth. You know, and a lot of I think that there's a purpose to fiction in terms of why it's part of this realm and why humans love fictional stories, is that we're actually able to work out what you would call karma through fiction. But when it gets in the hands of like bad intentions and putting that fiction out to people who are low awareness because they don't have a lot of juice in their battery, then that same mechanism is actually like adding karma on instead of helping people work through karma. It can go, it's a tool that can go either direction, you know?
Right. Yeah. I'd like to just also, for everyone listening, those quantum healing therapy techniques, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with holotropic breathing, rebirthing. I've had rebirthing sessions where I've visited past lives too. And in my energy work, there are a lot of stories that come that can only be described as past lives that connect, like Gordy was saying, exactly to the point in reference in this now, again in quote time, and that relates, and it kind of, you know, closes the loop, and healing takes place, which is fascinating to me. Every time that happens, it's just magnificent of like, whoa, the multidimensionality of ourselves is just exquisite.
It just like proves like the little fractals too of synchronicity. Like you see them, like they're all kind of like touching and in their own kind of way. And like, once you get that objectivity too, you can kind of see it. Like that's one of the biggest things for me was, I think, like, because I think I did it about a year ago.
Nice.
And it's just been really interesting to see like how being able to look back at that of what the changes, you know, I have or have not. And I should have a little more in this area or whatever, but you don't have that objectivity if you're not looking.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Presence. Yeah. Mm.
This feels really good right now.
Yeah, guys, I'm about to curl up on the couch and go to sleep if we go any longer. I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll get it. We'll go ahead. And
No.
Liz, Tara, please tell everyone where they can find your work and like what you're excited about, people to dig into, and how they can connect with you one-on-one, and what you can do together. Like whatever you would like to share, promote, plug, and express, please go ahead. We'll
Mm.
start with Liz, and then we'll give Tara the wrap up.
So you can find both of us at thesourceconnection.us. And there it's the platform for our podcast together. And feel free to email us right there. Connect at thesourceconnection.us. We're excited about this third year of the podcast and the continuous focus on telling new stories, right? What are the possibilities, like the conversations we were having here? How can we, what are we agreeing and consenting to for a new thing to emerge? We're excited about our 8 to 10 week program. We haven't decided that yet, called Ignite, which it's a way to come together and to come to the fullness of who you are, and through the program recognize how you're showing up for yourself, how you're showing up for others, what gifts are you bringing forth into the world, what's your contribution, how is life mirroring that back for you. Thank you everyone. Shannon, I'm seeing the little comments. Yeah, and I think we're excited to continue to amplify the field, of these conversations, of the weaving, to get stronger and juicier and richer, and just, yeah, stay in the flow.
Liz, do you want people to find you anywhere
Oh, yeah.
before we go to?
Yeah, I've kind of been a little unplugged from everything that's virtual. This what do you call it? Not virtual reality, but like, yeah, I don't know. But you can find me on Instagram at sadhnadiaries.com. Sadhana, like as a spiritual practice, SADHANA_diaries, not .com. And then you can always email me at BEE yoga at protonmail.com if you want to just chat 101. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you both. Gordy, it was a pleasure to meet you. And Chance, as always, brother, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just wrap up quickly. In addition, we also have the Source Instagram.
Oh, yes.
Source Connection Instagram, that's new. And we also have a Telegram channel. We just haven't done anything with it yet. So if you want to come find us on Telegram, we do have a channel there, and we hope to nurture that in the new year. And you can find me at my website. It's probably the easiest, which is just my name. You see right there, tarahlong.com. That's me.
And yeah, talking about thank you, Chance, for instigating us to, get on Rockfin and all of that stuff. So more to come in the new year. We just revamped our website, new logo. So we're excited to just continue to unfold.
Yeah, and Chance's episode comes out in the new year.
Yeah, we're excited.
Look out for that.
Yeah, we wanted to be the first one of the new year. So
and thank you both.
Thank you. It was very nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
You too, Gordy. Nice to see you again, Chance.
Yeah, we'll whisper. I'll be connecting there. Just
Yeah, have Gordy on. You guys would really love it.
Oh yeah, Gordy, come on.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Gordy, you got any closing thoughts or shots, my buddy?
This has been great. This is wonderful. Stay in your body, listen to it, sing to your food, by the way, too. That helps a lot. It helps you, get your mind straight. Unless you're singing a shitty song that you don't like anyway, you're gonna be putting good vibes into the food anyway, right? So sing what you like. Who cares what's around? Nobody cares what you're doing in your own kitchen. If you look stupid, it's okay. your kids will get over it.
They'll remember that. Remember that? Yeah. When dad used to sing, remember mom did that?
Yeah, exactly.
You, man, you ladies are lovely. Thank you so much for this great experience. I knew we'd have fun, and I'll just plug for myself the InnerVerseMerch.com store. Go get a crazy puzzle or a shirt or something. I would appreciate the support, and you get treasure. Please do that. And I'm going to play a song as we exit.
Nice.
Our friend Homie Romy from Rising from the Ashes, he was apparently inspired from the conversation I had with Michelle on Michelle's Healing Home last night, which I also want people to go check out. I will republish that to my channel, but go subscribe to Michelle's Healing Home. She's the best. We love Michelle. I'm going to play this song that Homie Romy made, Sweet Salt for the People, because apparently when I did the group tuning during that video, he had some sweet salt come out of his eyeballs. So good for you. Thanks, Homie Romy. Thanks, Liz, Tara, Gordy. Thanks everyone for being here. Much love. Good night, everyone.
Yeah.